Honkai Impact 3rd is a game made by the same company that made Genshin Impact. However, many people were avoiding this game with different reasons such as the UI graphic was not user-friendly, is not available on console like Genshin, it doesn't have playable house bundle, and the story is already way too long and complex. Well, I cannot fix all those issues, but if you're here wondering about why Honkai has such a complex story, then I may know the reason why. However, I will not give a story summary or a spoiler. In fact, if you're looking for a complete story guideline, I suggest you go to Hoyostans. First, you may ask, why third? Where's the first and second game? Well, there is a game previously before Honkai Impact 3rd. However, that previous game story is not directly connected to Honkai Impact 3rd. The word third itself is actually means the third impact. This impact is kind of like a big apocalypse or war, so we can say it's Honkai Impact World War 3, something like that. Because there's a first and second impact happen before the first chapter in the game. Well, okay, let's move on. Honkai Impact story is as complex as the Fate series, or even more complex. When the Fate series canonically follow linear path with some different timeline, Honkai Impact itself have a tree consisting of multiple timeline. What they call is the imaginary tree. The imaginary tree is the most important place in the universe, or I can say a Hoyo-verse. Is the origin of the tree is the origin of life, and in the game it says that each leaves on the imaginary tree has its own bubble universe. But man, you can say how the story is getting more and more complicated, right? It's also already been theorized by fans that even in the imaginary tree lies other Hoyo-verse games such as Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, but only that they position differently on the branch. Now if you play Honkai Star Rail, you notice that the story is totally different to Honkai Impact. Only one same character, which is Welt. This is because Welt traveled through space and time, as you can read on a alien space manga. I don't want to dive into Star Rail though. Honkai Impact main story chapter itself is complicated. Within the multiple arcs is a great story, heartwarming. Some say it's dark. It can get philosophical, even touching the philosophy of life. Without spoiling too much, it's about the story of the trio main character trying to save humanity against the Honkai. However, as I mentioned in the beginning, Honkai Impact story can be very confusing. Not just because of the timelines, it's because of the lore dump. Since near the end of the part 1, the Honkai writer tried to put heavy pseudoscience with philosophical questions like, what is Honkai? Why do birds fly? Something like that. Sure, it's interesting for the story, but not everyone able to grasp all the lore dump in one go. Sometimes I feel like I miss Paimon, you know? Other than the main story chapter, you may notice a few modes in the game that contain story, such as the Chronicle, Open World, and Elysian Realm. Chronicle consists of side story and some story on a different timeline. The Open World also consists of story from alternate timeline, except a post Honkai Odyssey or APHO. APHO is canonically happen 8 years after the main story part 1 ended. The last mode that contains story is Elysian Realm. Most people may either never play this or grind this like every week for the crystal, to pull for the characters. For the story for Elysian Realm is considered to be the main story because this mode from Elysian Realm happened on one of the middle arc of the main story. However, saying that, in the main story itself, they made a recap of what happened from Elysian Realm. So in a nutshell, you can just play the main story without even playing Elysian Realm. Yeah. Other than that, outside of the game, there's also tons of Honkai Impact manga and visual novel, but yeah, I will be here forever if I will discussing this. So yeah, that's why I really recommend checking out the Hoyostans if you want to follow the whole Honkai story timeline. That should be all for part 1 of Honkai Impact 3rd. At the time of recording this, part 2 of Honkai Impact was released, and many of you may also wonder, is part 2 a different game? Is part 2 connected to part 1? And do I need to finish playing all part 1 to play part 2? Okay, so part 2 is in the same game as part 1, so you just download one game, Honkai Impact 3rd. You can also automatically play part 2 without finishing part 1, but I think you need like a certain level. I think it was level 30, so you need to be at level 30 and then you can start automatically play part 2. The story for part 2 is different, totally different to part 1. Part 1 follow our Kiana and the gang, the trio, while part 2 give a new main characters with a brand new story. There is some cameo like the character from part 1 being the teacher for part 2 characters, but it's basically like a new generation thing. So that's it for the video. I hope now you can not understand Honkai Impact 3rd. You see what I did there? It's the Evangelion reference. Since the creator of Honkai Impact is a Evangelion fan. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please give a like and subscribe. Keep watching anime and see you next time. Min Hydro signing out. Yay.